Welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're tackling a really big one, the Israel-Iran conflict. It's incredibly complex, critical stuff.
Absolutely, a major driver of instability.
So our goal here is to unpack what's really driving it, the global impact, and maybe look at where things might be heading. We've dug through the sources.
Right, try to distill it down.
Exactly. By the end, you should have a much clearer picture, a sort of shortcut to getting informed on this. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. The core causes. It seems like ideology is just fundamental here, isn't it?
It really is. At its heart, you've got these deep ideological and religious divides. Iran, the Shia Islamic Republic, views Israel as an illegitimate Zionist entity.
A fundamental challenge to their worldview.
Precisely. And on the other side, Israel sees Iran's leadership, its rhetoric, its ambitions as a genuine existential threat. These aren't just political disagreements, they're clashing realities.
And this isn't just talk, right? These beliefs fuel actual strategy on the ground. How does Iran translate ideology into action, especially with proxies?
Yeah, that's the fascinating and frankly dangerous part. Iran uses this network. Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas, Islamic Jihad in Gaza.
Militias in Syria, Iraq, Yemen too?
Exactly. It's asymmetric warfare. It gives them deniability, lets them project power, create this sort of ring of fire around Israel.
Without needing Iranian soldiers directly involved, usually.
Right. These groups push Iran's goals, leading to clashes.
Yeah.
But Iran can often maintain some distance.
Okay, ideology, proxies. But the thing that really worries people, I think, is the nuclear program. How does that fit into Israel's thinking, the immediate risks?
Oh, the nuclear issue is a huge flashpoint. For Israel, a nuclear-armed Iran is just. It's an absolute red line.
Yeah.
An existential threat, plain and simple.
Which explains the reports of covert actions, sabotage, assassinations.
It certainly seems to. Cyber attacks, targeting scientists, facilities, anything to slow it down. And this is all happening within a wider regional power struggle, Iran pushing for dominance.
And Israel, with the U.S. trying to contain that, especially in places like Syria and Lebanon.
Which then become these proxy battlegrounds themselves. It's all interconnected.
And these ripples, they definitely don't stay local. What about the global economy? Oil seems like the obvious one.
Oh, absolutely. Think about the Strait of Hormuz. Vital shipping lane for oil. Even just the threat of conflict there. Rumors of escalation.
Oil prices jump every hour.
Instantly. And that hits everything. Transport costs, goods, inflation. It affects economies worldwide very quickly.
It's a stark reminder of global interdependence. And these proxy wars we mentioned, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Yemen, how do they spill over beyond just regional instability?
Well, they're not just contained fights. They are effectively indirect fronts in the larger Israel-Iran conflict. They generate huge instability.
Humanitarian crises.
Refugee flows, yeah. And they create space for extremist groups to operate. These aren't just regional problems, they become global security concerns.
And then you add in the big powers, the U.S., Western nations. How does their involvement shape things?
It adds, a whole other layer of complexity. The U.S. provides massive support to Israel, military, diplomatic. Iran, meanwhile, faces heavy international sanctions, led by the U.S. and EU.
So any direct clash risks pulling others in.
Definitely. Escalation could easily draw the U.S. and its allies into a much wider war. And beyond the geopolitics, you see the societal impact too, right? Polarization, rising anti-Semitism, rising Islamophobia globally. It affects diaspora communities everywhere.
So given all that complexity, what about the future? Let's talk scenarios. The worst case, full-scale war, what does that look like?
Catastrophic. Just catastrophic. We'd be looking at devastating civilian casualties, infrastructure destroyed.
Regional powers dragged in, maybe the U.S.
Very possibly. And the nightmare scenario, of course, is if Iran actually got nuclear weapons. That could escalate things to an unimaginable level.
Okay, that's the high risk. What about the likely scenario, this sort of Cold War proxy conflict continuing?
That seems, unfortunately, more probable in the near term. Both sides continue fighting indirectly. Proxy, cyber attacks, covert ops.
Maybe occasional flare-ups like we've seen.
Exactly. Syria likely stays a key front. The idea is to avoid that all-out direct war, keep it simmering, contained, if you can call it that.
And the third option, diplomacy, de-escalation. You called it unlikely but possible. What would that take?
Honestly, huge political shifts, maybe even regime change somewhere. We've seen Israel normalize relations with some Arab states, but
Yeah, that kind of deal with Iran seems a long way off.
a very long way. The ideological gap, the strategic rivalry, it's just too wide right now for that kind of breakthrough, it seems.
So wrapping this up, the key takeaway really is the sheer multi-layered nature of it all. Ideology, strategy, regional power, global impact, it's all woven together.
Exactly. And understanding those layers, how they connect, is just crucial if you want to make sense of what's happening, not just in the Middle East, but globally. You have to see the complexity behind the headlines.
Okay, a final thought for you to ponder. Given how entrenched and complex this all feels, are there any historical parallels? Any examples of conflicts that seem just as intractable but somehow managed to evolve for better, or maybe for worse? Something to think about. We'll see you next time.